We'll call the meeting to order. And if we could start with our pledge of allegiance. Back in the rear of the room. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We want to briefly touch on our meeting guidelines and safety protocol. The purpose of this meeting is for the board to conduct board business. Meeting is open to the public and it is being recorded. You can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through our district website. This meeting is being presented via Zoom. It's not appropriate for audience members to interrupt board business or to ask questions during the meeting. Agenda items will be addressed as listed on the agenda. And in case of an emergency, please exit the room using the exit closest to you. We have our vision and mission statement. Director Johnston, would you like to read our vision and mission statement?
Sure. Vision, our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Our mission, in connection with our community, the Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so each student thrives.
Thank you. And Director Halverson, would you like to read the landing note?
The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments. Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe, located in Port Angeles, Washington. Jamestown S'Klallam tribe, located in Sequim, Washington. And the Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe, located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on program and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you. And with that, that'll bring us to agenda items 2.01 and 2.02. The approval of our minutes from December 5th and December 14th. December 5th minute, and regular minutes, and December 14th study session minutes. And I'd be happy to hear a motion.
I move that we approve the minutes from the December 5th regular meeting and the December 14th study session.
Thank you. And we have a second.
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. That motion passes. And that will bring us to our agenda. And we have could I hear a motion approving the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda for this evening.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The agenda is approved. Brings us to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Any discussion on the consent agenda? All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda approved. And just so we're aware, we have talked about streamlining that process, but we're not quite there yet. So we're gonna still work on that, but we want to make sure we have all our ducks in a row prior to that. But should be fairly simple once we do it. It's just important that we're following our own policies. So, and so that's gonna bring us to 5.01, which is public comment. We have both the opportunity for in-person public comment as well as live virtual public comment. For our in-person public comment, we would need to use the sign-up sheet we have located at the table. We have, okay. Do not have anyone signed up for public comment in person. So regarding our virtual public comment, within the Zoom screen, you would just need to raise your hand and you will be unmuted when it's your turn to speak. And we'll do our best to call you in order of your raised hand. Commenters will be allowed audio privileges only. Please state your name and address before talking. Do want to remind folks that it's not appropriate for complaints or charges about employees to be mentioned during public comment. These issues are to be addressed to the superintendent in writing. The board and superintendent or district personnel typically do not engage in direct conversation or give feedback during the meeting. Questions and comments from those addressing the board may be referred to staff to follow up at a later date if needed. And board action and discussion is limited to previously published agenda topics. So again, you would need to please state your name and address prior to speaking. So if you are attending the meeting via Zoom and would like to make public comment, please do so now by using the raise hand function. And I see Kay Richardson.
Hi, this is Kay Richardson, and I'm with Sequim Sunrise Rotary, and I just wanted to thank Regan, Ned, and Megan, and many, many other people for taking on the CTE opportunity, and Sequim Sunrise Rotary is in full support of the school district's efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else wishing to make public comment, please do so by using the raise hand icon down the bottom. Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of the meeting. And that's going to bring us to our student board representative report, and we will start with Gail.
Well, I just want to say we got two important events coming up for students to hear their voice more. The first one is we have a strategic planning workshop at 6 o'clock this Thursday, I'm sure you're aware of. So we sent out a broad announcement in our homerooms today to help try and get some student representation in there to hear some voices. And we're hoping we can get at least like maybe 20 people there. And I think that would be good to have some good turnout so we can get some more student feedback to see what direction our school needs to go in. And then the other one, I talked with the superintendent. We have plans to start a student advisory group at the high school. We're going to start tentatively on the 30th of this month during our homerooms because we think that's what's going to be most accessible for all the students. And the goal of this is for students to have a place to raise topics that are important to them and would like to see addressed. And we're hoping that we can also find input here and then take it back to you guys for policy. And I'm looking forward to that. And I really hope both these events turn out well so that we can have some more student voice on it. And that's all I got tonight.
Great, thank you. Sorry.
Well, good evening, happy New Year.
Yeah.
I heard today in the homeroom about the Thursday, what's going on Thursday, and I saw some very good reactions from a couple of students. Just something I thought of was maybe we can have a place on campus where students can come up and write anything they want to add, like in case they miss the meeting or they feel more comfortable by writing instead of picking up on the meeting there. Maybe that could be like the place they could turn to. And then for today, first I want to say that everybody liked the lunches on Friday. The lunch lady served like kind of a fresh lunch. And there was a big lunch in the cafeteria that was very successful. And I heard a lot of students saying that they would love to hear it more often, to see it more often. And then I would like to announce that the junior class is having a takeover at the McDonald's of Sequim, January 11th. It's this Wednesday, I believe, from 5 to 7 p.m. Please come and support the junior class. High school is hosting their poetry out loud competition Wednesday, January 18th. And it starts at 6 p.m. where students will perform 2 poems. And the winner will represent at the regional finals for poetry out loud competition. Senior class is excited to host auditions for the senior class party of the senior class play, I'm sorry. And the show will take place in late February or early March. That's all I had for today. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, we now have our fall sports report. Yeah, Craig. Welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for being patient with me. It's been a few weeks since fall sports has ended. Is it okay? Sorry. Isn't it?
Oh, sorry, Sharon.
You're my clicker, right?
I am.
So just speaking to the fall sports, a little bit getting just fall, that's got them all in there, but fall sports. So we'll go through just one sport at a time. And if it's appropriate, you can certainly ask questions again. Starting with volleyball. Volleyball had a really successful year. They finished 12-8 there. And the turnout was incredible. And Coach Weber Hellman's been the coach there for quite some time now, and she does a great job with the girls there. Finished second in our league. And then we're 1 game away. The district playoffs had to face North K, who took first in our league, and I'd seen them many times before, and almost knocked them out to go on to state, but dropped a 5th game to them, or 5th set to win the match there. But yeah, academically, phenomenal job there, and they hold their girls to a very high academic standard. Everybody kind of met that standard academically all year, so I was very pleased that they were eligible all year with high GPA there for the team GPA. And football, their record was not as favorable as it has been in the past, but struggling actually shoot. I think that's supposed to be 2-7. They played 9 games total. So sorry about the typo there. 2-7 with Coach Wicker at the helm there and a large coaching staff. I had 54 participants, which was up from last year. COVID really took a toll. And then when your numbers are down in football, it's hard to be successful. It's a numbers game oftentimes. We play a lot of bigger schools. But the highlight, we did beat PA at PA, and it was an incredible game. And so the seniors are gonna remember that, and like late 4th quarter drive to score. It looked like we were gonna score, and then we didn't. We dropped the ball wide open, dropped it in the end zone, and then had 1 more play and then got it in there. So it was really exciting. There were 2 that were academically eligible, but with the numbers for football, I think it was a success academically as well. Using sports to hold kids accountable there and do the job at the classroom. Good. Cross country. Oh geez, and that's the typo on the varsity record. Oh geez, I'm sorry about that. But the cross country did very well at 37 participants, which was more than last year as well. So the numbers are blooming there. Coach Brinkman and Coach Shade and Coach Pyatt, they were doing a great job. The girls wound up qualifying for state. It's a young girls team. They did not have a senior on that qualifying group, and they made it to state there. So the future is bright, and the boys had a participant in state as well. And academically did a phenomenal job for the cross country team as well. The girls struggled. The girls swim was a challenge, and they had a change of head coach throughout the season, and so. What I can say with that is that the girls swim program, the girls and the girls swimmers did a phenomenal job of staying focused through it. But we had to have Anita Benitez had to step down, and so Brett Hemphill took over about halfway through, and Donna was the assistant coach throughout, and she kind of stayed and helped the transition there. We had 18 swimmers, which was a good number for us, and swimmers did pretty well, especially the relay teams there. In the 400 free and the 200 medley, scored well in the postseason. So the swimmers did an excellent job, but there was a little turmoil in the swim season, mid-season, having to hire a coach and kind of get through that. So, and then soccer, coached by Ken Garling. did an excellent job as well. Dave Breckenridge, his assistant, at 13 girls participated. They were trying to get to a JV squad as well, but they wound up just going through the season with just a varsity. They played a couple JV games with low numbers, but then decided to just, that it wasn't feasible for them or their opponent. They were giving their opponent a good full-sided game. So the varsity finished third in the league and got seeded on the tough side of the district tournament. They beat Clover Park here. They actually had a home match that we played up at Peninsula College, and they won that. But then they were eliminated the next day. They had to travel and play back to back, and it was a tough one there for them. And a tough seed that into their season, but they did a great job, including Taryn Johnson, I think set the record for, I know she set the record for most goals scored in a career, and that's as a junior. So she's coming back, and so that's exciting there. And then lastly, boys tennis. The numbers were really low to begin with, but eventually, and all the sports started 2 weeks before school started. So tennis numbers kind of trickled in. They started at 5 or 6. And then after school started, they got up to 13 participants. They had a full varsity squad and some JV players. Coach Dexter did a great job with Coach Hay, Coach Grant as the assistants. Multiple double teams went to the district tournament. And then one singles player, Garrett Little, did a phenomenal job. He, as a sophomore last year, qualified, got 3rd in the state. And he's seeded #1 coming out of our district here. The tennis, boys tennis is an odd one because girls tennis is in the spring, boys tennis is in the fall. So they play league and district playoffs, and the state tournament is then held in the spring. So Garrett Little gets to practice all winter while playing basketball for me and working on his tennis game so that he's ready in May for his state tennis tournament that he qualified for last October. But he's a tough competitor, and then academically the tennis team did very well as well. Okay. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank
Well,
you.
before you step away, Craig, I'd just like to thank Craig because he's basically as new as I am doing his job as I'm doing mine. And so I appreciate how we've worked together this year, and he's brought me along about how we operate with sports. And I actually do think we've talked a lot about middle school and how we can grow things towards increased numbers, and we'll keep talking about that because it will make all the difference. So thank you for all you've done.
Such an important part of, that is a lot of times, the sports, I mean, it's what a lot of times what kids will want to be actively engaged, and it's such an important aspect of why, a lot of times why they want to keep coming. And although we want to make it about academics as well, we know that sports is just such an important part of it. So it's not always about the score per se, but it's just them being active and as part of the team. So I appreciate the presentation, and I think it's just important that our kids are well-rounded in all degrees. So
Yeah, I think so, yeah. And I think we're primed for participation to continue to increase coming out of COVID and moving forward and the direction our programs are going. So I'm excited.
yeah, great. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate
you.
your time.
All right, 8.01, our superintendent.
Okay, as you've heard from our student reps, strategic planning kicks off this week. So that will be January 12th. We are looking forward to having participants really invested in having discussion, perspective sharing after hearing some prompts and information about future focused education, because that's really what our students are needing from us. Think about being a kindergartner right now and what world you will enter upon graduation. So we're going to be very forward thinking in this exercise. But as we move through all of the sessions, what will be really important is that we hold on to the nuggets about what competencies our students should be guaranteed to exit our system with, no matter what, and how those competencies are built at every grade. Because developmentally, the way you build a skill like perseverance, collaboration, problem solving has to happen in a different way, depending if you're a first grader, fifth grader, 7th, or 12th. So I know that the many minds that will come to the table will help us think through what education can be. And thank you for making the effort about getting students here. That really will make a difference. Adults need to hear that input from the students who are sitting in the seats. Good job. I also want to announce that KNOP has invited me back for January 25th to discuss strategic planning. So we'll have a session under our belt. We'll have our second session the next day from the radio spot. So I'll be talking about what we experience on Thursday and get it out so more people hopefully will be attracted to come. Anyone who's listening tonight, we would like to have you at the table, Guy Cole Center on Thursday, 6 o'clock. Look forward to it. Safety forum. Next week, we will be looking at Thursday evening for our safety forum as a follow-up to our prior October forum. This time we will be featuring a panel along with a presentation from me. And what we're hopeful for is that the panel will be representative of the safety-minded efforts we've been making since October. So they'll be able to speak to training that's occurred throughout our staff levels. We'll be able to talk about policy that we've been developing and revising based on safety needs, the efforts of capital projects to make sure we're investing in the right things to forward safety, and what the future is going to be around our capital projects coming up this summer. So I'm sure you are aware that over winter break, we had many cameras installed, close to 50, and every one of our campuses experienced an addition, and they're up and running. The admin team is absolutely pleased with the outcome. And I'd like to personally thank Bo, who's here with us. His winter break was different than many people's winter break. He spent it right here, helping to get all of the contractors where they needed to be. When we ran into a situation where we couldn't access a certain place because of something there, Bo made a beeline to clean it out, get them up in there. And the product is just wonderful. So Bo, thank you. And anything you'd like to share about that experience?
I mean, the original proposed timeline was to have it all done in kind of the first week of winter break, but naturally, you know, the middle school and high school took it right up until the end of December, and then the other contractor that was working on Allard, Greenville, and OPA, they should be finished with, they're finished with Allard, Greenville already, and they should be finished with OPA this week.
The snow that arrived in winter break did cause us a little schedule shift, but the outcome is what we've hoped for. So it's good news. Okay. Also related to safety, we did put out an alert last week that there had been a threat situation that we were monitoring. I just want the board to know that all the protocols were followed. Law enforcement was involved, as my message said, and our outcome has been a productive plan moving forward and response. And I just want to thank all the folks at the middle school. Shelley Langston's here tonight, our special ed director, who also helped to guide us around programming. So I think the assessment tools we're using for such situations are working well. We do have a board study session slated for this month, so we keep you out many nights a week, right? That's on the 25th. And I'm thinking that we're going to focus in part on the board self-evaluation. That needs to be completed by the end of the school year. And I think it's prime time for us to review what that expectation would be, all of the areas that you would be self-evaluating, so that we can make a plan of how we complete that process. We also will have an update on budget development by then as well. So I'll be working with Director Pickens to make sure that we are making an agenda that suits what you need, but also is looking ahead. Okay, and then I just would like you to know that, as Caleb brought up, the students superintendent advisory team, we will be getting that up and running. And I'm really looking forward to this. And I think that our student reps will be able to bring back information from those sessions so that you can have a running record of what we're discussing and what's playing out. But what I've also spoken to the reps about is that it's really important that as we do learn things in these sessions, that we give the school administration the time and courtesy of letting them know some things early and give them some time to respond before we might bring it to the school board. So we'll continue to work on how we get a communication loop that works well. And as we get this going, I'll put an invite out to you if you'd like to come watch a session or two. That's all I have.
Any questions for the superintendent? All right. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to move right into board business, and that is going to start with 9.01. Our day, February Day on the Hill discussion. Larry, do you want to start off this topic for us?
Well, just briefly, we haven't, I did contact WASDA, we haven't gotten a definite. Usually they send out like a spreadsheet for us to pick date, times and days to meet with our representatives down in Olympia. And it gets very busy. This being the new session just started. And this is the first time in 2 or 3 years that they've had everybody on campus down there at Olympia. And it's a little bit I've attended it. The last time we attended, it's pretty frenetic. It gets really crowded in the rooms. Everybody crowding in to see the representatives. One time we met in individual offices with our 2 reps and our senator. The next time we met in a larger room with all 3 of them. So it just depends on what happens. And we were lucky enough last time the students got to meet the governor in the governor's office. I don't know if that'll happen or not. The day before that is the legislative conference. And the way it was held last time, it was in a big room, a big auditorium that was packed. Several good quality speakers that showed up. Actually, it's WASA, the School Administrators Organization, seems to be the prime sponsors of this, but WASDA for the Directors Association, WASBO for the Business Office Association, they all combined to make this a pretty big affair. So it's a 2-day, a Sunday afternoon and a Monday morning, basically, is what it turns out to be. But other than we've been registered and those kinds of things, arrangements have been made. I don't really have any information from WASDA yet. I did send out to all of you, the WASDA pages, bill watches. It seems to be a little bit more user friendly than it has been in the past. But if there are bills on there that you want to take a look at, to keep track of, you can. And there's some pretty important ones in there. For example, in special ed, they're talking about raising the cap from 13.5% to 14.5%, which means, right, and 13.5% to 14.5% of our students are expected to be in special ed. Above that, which we usually are, we have to pay for ourselves. The state won't pay for it. But at least it's a step in the right direction. And keep in mind, the legislators have this is a long session, 2-year budget, lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of people want to have a share of the money. So it's a very tough, complicated job. So if we can go down there and advocate for education, it'll probably make a difference. Well, I'll keep feeding you information about what WASDA has to say, and once we find out more about our schedule for Hill on the Day, we'll let you know. And you're going to have to be responsive. I don't have the experience that Director Stauffer had, so he pretty much kind of ran things magically. It's not going to be so much magic this year. It's going to be hard work and plus the state and WASDA hasn't done this for a couple of years, so a lot of new people are going to be involved.
Yeah. Well, then I think we had that previously, Director Stopper not only was our board legislative rep, he was also the district area elected for district area 4 as well. So that might be, I think, board director in Central, Drayton. in Central
Drayton's
gets
one,
that.
and then there's a new one, but I haven't heard much from them at all. They're not as, we don't hear from them as much as we did from Director Stoffer when he was the.
Well, yeah, looking forward to setting up some sessions with our folks, and I think that we're gonna be able to have our students present as well, right? So having that student voice will be important with those meetings as well, and I would say, yeah, as it relates to a lot of different aspects of education funding, but I'm glad you brought up special education, because I think that's one that,
Well, that was one of our top priorities, top priority for a lot of education organizations is getting that more money for special ed. I did watch Chris Reichdahl, the superintendent of schools, state of education report on video this morning, his presentation. I think you can still go in there and find a recording of it. It'd be highly worth looking at. There are a lot of things in there that I think were very encouraging, and knowing that he's down there fighting for education.
Yeah.
And with all the other people that are, like I said, there's only so much money to go around, and there's a lot of need.
the special education one, it's interesting because there's. Of course, we're obligated by law to provide those services, and of course, we'd want to, right? We have to provide those services for the students, but that they're only, we're capped at there's a cap to a certain percentage provided, but it's not as if we're still going to have to pay for those services that we provide the students, so it seems like it's a broken scenario, but I'm glad it's being adapted to some degree. I don't know if 1% is enough, but see what we can do on that. Other thoughts, rest of the board or reading?
I just want to share with our student reps that it's February 26th and 27th. So look at your calendars for Sunday and Monday, and we'll be in touch with you about details.
Well, there won't be any school missed on for this particular event.
Well, it's Monday.
Well, oh yeah, Monday though, yeah, a chunk of the day, so not quite a little
No,
different
right.
than the WASDA.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
Is that something we go as a group, individual? Is it kind of like we did for WASDA, just kind of a big group thing?
That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Tracy, I think, is taking care of registration and all the details. But how we get there and so on still is. We'll have to decide how
Planning
it gets
phase.
done.
Still in the planning phase there.
Yeah, it's in the planning phase. I'm not sure the planning has started, but yeah.
starting now. Planning phase would be good.
So I guess my question would be, it's not WASDA, but we would decide which bills we want to talk with our representatives.
Well, yes and no. You'll find that, there might be 40 or 50 people in that room talking to our three legislators,
And WASDA will give us talking points about what
usually.
the organization's priorities are. And, I think those are things that we have weighed in on in the past, so it's like all the districts weigh in on what we want our priorities to be. And, so I don't think we're gonna have time, I don't think we'll have time to.
For us as a group to
Individual.
decide.
You might get a question in. And students, they really like to hear from students. So we may coordinate that to make sure that this, if you can get a question in to the representative, that's Representative Chapman, Representative Theringer, and Senator Vanderwijk. And that's who we meet with, because there are ours. So, but they like to hear from students. They really do. They go out of their way. If a student is going to speak, they listen. If an old board member wants to speak, then maybe they listen, maybe not, I don't know. But they
So-
like students.
So, Dr. Jeffers, I was under the impression that, when we scheduled the direct meetings on Monday with
Mhm.
our representatives, that it would just be this group that's present with them. Is that?
That was my question.
It was, one time that I went down there, that's the way it was. We ran around and tried to find their offices. The next time, we all met in one room just off of the, House chambers. In a larger room, we met with all three of them at the same time. And all of District 6 was there.
Okay, so it would have Port Angeles,
It's pretty, yeah, well,
all the folks,
all,
all the folks that are in the 24th
I
legislature.
think the legislators themselves have a lot of say how they want to handle that.
Okay, that's a good point.
So I don't know, I haven't, like I said, we haven't gotten all the details from Mosley yet.
Okay. Yeah, because there's, and I guess some will depend on how many folks end up attending from, whether it be Squim or Port Townsend, Chimacum, Wilson, because all the districts are represented by the same folks, so. We may want to, well. Yeah, I guess specific to your point, we have specific issues that, of course, are important to Squim. Of course, those might not be necessarily fully aligned with the Chimacum School Board, for example, or Port Townsend. Or Port Angeles.
Might
So,
just be a difference in order priority.
yeah, but my guess would be that there certainly are a few that must be some alignment on, be my guess, so.
If all 1,447 school board directors showed up, it would probably make an impression. It's the largest body of elected officials in the state. So, a room full of smiling, concerned faces probably would impress the legislators.
The last comment I'd make is, we are perceiving that you're all in the affirmative to attend. So if you are not, just let us know, because we're making plans for everyone.
Anything else? All right. Yeah, that's gonna bring us to 9.02. CTE Center of Excellence, discussion, of business plan approval, and I'm going to start with, pass it over to our superintendent.
Okay. I'm gonna hand out hard copies of our business plan. And before we get started with the business plan, I'd like to just bring you up to speed on a few things. Number one, we have a lot of thanks to give in this initiative toward a CTE facility center of excellence, because this has been a true community partnership up to this point. We have the July forum back in 2022, where not only business leaders came to our school district, but legislators as well. And in having that visit, Senator Wellman was able to tour the facilities and recognize that things are antiquated. And that's a pleasant way of describing it. Modernization is necessary for SQUIM to move forward to increase capacity for CTE. And so Senator Wellman has advocated that SQUIM be in a position of receiving $15 million of a grant to move forward with the Center of Excellence for the modernization to allow us to educate for workforce-ready graduates who can make a living wage. So you'll be hearing more about that in a moment. But the 15 million has brought with it the interest of having a $1 million community pledge so that the legislature can look at this and see that SQUIM is in. Right. And so we've had an entire steering committee who has come together multiple times in the fall and winter now to look at this and bring us to this place we are with this comprehensive business plan. And I just want to thank those folks, because as you heard from Kay Richardson today, we've had representation from many agencies, Rotary, Economic Development Council, City of SQUIM. We've had representatives come to the meetings to talk with us. And I am just impressed with the amount of interest. Peninsula College has come to the table. along with many other individuals who have interests in things like housing, development and SQUIM, but we need the construction behind it in order to get it done. So in this room tonight is Ned Flater. And I'm going to bring Ned up to the podium. And I'd like you to know something about Ned. He tells me and many others every day that he's here for the district to do what is needed to be done. And I have to say, this man walks his talk. He has put in more hours around this effort, including organizing the July forum that actually got this kick started. So I really have to credit you, Ned, because we would not be at this distance without your leadership and your passion, because that's what comes through every time you speak to it. So come on up and we'll do this presentation together. And we're going to walk through this business plan and have any questions ready, because probably Ned, but one of us can answer. Okay. All right, as we start, why a business plan? Well, we're bringing you a business plan this evening because there is a lot of passion behind the idea. And we're an educational institution, so we understand the educational benefits to our students to have opportunities and pathways. But the community stakeholders were very quick to point out to us, we need to see the metrics of how there would be a return on investment. And this document is designed to point out where all of the return is, and there's plenty. So the metrics here have been brought together from many different angles through a communications subcommittee of the steering committee. So we've had industry experts involved with this. We've had real estate experts involved. We've had CPAs involved with us. This is all about bringing it all together and putting it on paper. And it's one of the most impressive efforts in such few weeks that I've seen. So I'm excited about it. I hope you will be too. So you'll see our table of contents, and this, of course, is a draft for board knowledge tonight, but I also will be at the conclusion of my presentation asking the board to consider some type of acknowledgement if this is a plan that you can support going forward, because we would like to take this business plan to the city of SQUIM and really speak to them about how they could be a partner with us. And we think the metrics are very explanatory, but also supportive. We also would be sending this business plan to the county and legislators that are making this decision, and also any other agencies that would be interested. For instance, I go to United Way tomorrow. All right, so right out of the gate, you'll see that we have an executive summary. And the executive summary is designed to really encapsulate what our purpose is, how we intend to get there, what the costs would be overall, and what our economic impact will be. As we all know, that's what many, many people are looking for. And to me, being an educator first, I care that there's student benefit, of course. But there's no doubt about that. And the CTE research, not only nationwide, but in our own district, shows us the metrics for community investment are substantial. And we'll get into that as we move through the plan. The proposed timeline is rapid. We are looking at putting this before the legislators as early as January and moving through that process, and then having a timeline where we could have a center open in 2025. Ned, anything to add on this?
Just that we were counseled by Representative Theringer that our executive summary needed to speak to those issues. Because we do intend to present before the key legislators as they negotiate this. So this is a product they're going to have. So at one of our steering committees, Representative Theringer came and spoke to us regarding their requirements with respect to this information.
Okay, our next page is a letter that I have written to entities that are interested in deciding if they would support this development. What my letter tries to articulate is that we are making this decision to have education truly tie to the local workforce needs. It is not about preparing students just necessarily for their life ahead. Of course, that would be a benefit they'll derive, but it's really about looking locally at what the needs are and getting innovative about that. And so I'm indicating here that this is a $15 million opportunity. And when we have to invest $1 million toward 15 million, it seems to be a math problem that's quite straight up. Let's capitalize. But second to that, I think it's really important that we understand the businesses that have these job openings throughout our county would have a fulfillment rate that would allow us to then derive benefit even further from sales tax coming in, dollars to be spent from wages, and having the ability of the tax base to be a stronger tax base for SQUIM as well. So we're really looking forward to people understanding that careers are out there for students right when they graduate from high school, if we get this right. Okay, next page, why a new career and technical education center for SQUIM? It's really answers the primary question any campaign should answer, and that is the why. So I'll let Ned speak to this.
Requirements across the state for CTE programs to include making it a graduation pathway. Insist that we tie whatever we do in CTE to local industry and labor markets within our region. As we evaluated using the Economic Development Council's own research data that they compiled over the last year, we evaluated that our capability to meet emergent labor market demands is not satisfactory to sustain our current CTE programs. So as we address what are those capabilities, we looked at 5 to 6 career clusters out of the 16 national recognized career clusters that CTE services. And of those 5 or 6, we're talking manufacturing, light industry, and heavy industry, automotives, information technology, healthcare, and hospitality. These are just 5 of those 14 to 16 clusters that CTE services. But within our region, those are the ones that provide the most economic impact. They have the greatest need within the labor market demands, and they provide students who graduate living wages. So this is why we targeted that within our scope of the concept. As we take a look at the facilities that are currently available, most of you understand these full well, that they are converted classrooms that are doing a service that they're not intended for. For instance, culinary arts, which targets the hospitality and tourism cluster. That's a converted home ec room, doesn't have the plumbing, the electricity, the capacity, the size, the space, the scope to really facilitate industry grade restaurant and hospitality, hospitality tourism. If we take a look at our current wood shop, again, developed around a concept of building cabinetry, though important and critical for cabinet building. Most construction sites don't build their own cabinets. They frame houses, they put in electrical, they put in plumbing. It's a shop that's not going to be able to do what we need it to do. And we could go on and on and on with respect to how do we upgrade and modernize and evolve our programs to meet the emergent demands of the 21st century. Well, we have pretty much used up our classroom space. And so creating infrastructure, which is just one component of the Center of Excellence, which is a new building that replicates manufacturing, replicates wide open spaces that have the necessity of power, electrical, plumbing, that is actually designed for industry grade. Plus classrooms that can be used by any of the CTE qualified teachers. But again, just one component of the Center of Excellence. The other components, which we're already working against and toward, which are recruiting students at younger ages to get involved in CTE programs to increase throughput, which therefore increases our FTE within the overall CTE and increases funding. CTE student, FTE for one CTE student is about a 1.25, 1.3 funding ratio to a general ed student, which is at about a 1.0. So we get increased funds for every CTE, FTE that we fulfill. So recruiting and training and getting kids involved at lower grade levels is critical. For instance, let's just take a look at what happened over the last 15 years. We used to have a wood shop in the middle school designed to teach kids introductory levels of, woodworking and tool safety and just introducing them to the trades. That program is no longer in existence. What was the impact to our district? The impact to our district was, well, those students who want to have that kind of a trade now start in the 9th grade. And so the skills that used to be taught in the middle school are now being taught in the 9th grade, which puts them behind the power curve by the time they graduate. They'll never achieve the great level of skill they need to step right into an industry-ready market. So this is why we need a center of excellence, not just the center itself, but a new way of looking at how we conduct CTE programs, how we test students in their aptitude, how we recruit students into the programs and give them a pathway that begins earlier that's compatible with their high school and beyond plan, all the way to graduation. These things, these elements are in place, but they're not connected. So as we move towards creating infrastructure, we'll also be moving towards creating a new culture around CTE. Questions?
Where would this center be located?
Center currently is slated to be located in the old soccer field that's adjacent to the middle school and lies directly behind the current CTE facilities of the automotive and the industrial tech labs. This place, we've already plumbed electricity towards it to power the greenhouse that we put there a year ago. But it's optimum for a lot of reasons. One, it has all the available parking, which reduces the cost of the facility. It has access to water, power, sewer. It has access to the middle school, which will allow middle school kids to transit over. It has access to the current facilities that are in place already. So from a logistical perspective, it supports all of the key elements required.
Yeah, you mentioned, when time came, you might be going down to Olympia to testify. Let us know when those are, the time, date, and place, because that kind of testimony doesn't always show up on our radar. I mean, you know how the legislative works. You might get a heads up, let's say from Senator Wellman, that we would receive.
Certainly.
So just let us know, maybe we can help out, maybe we can be there and speak, whatever, but we'd like to know.
The plan that we have moving forward with this is we'll be meeting this Wednesday with our CTE steering committee. But we wanted to meet with you first to make sure that you see our business plan proposal. There are some tweaks that we still have to do to this before we go final with it. But this is about a 95% proof document. I mean, what we're going to change are we're going to have pictures of our students in here versus pictures of some students there. And so those are the kinds of changes that we're going to implement to it. But we wanted you to see the comprehensive nature of this plan and to think about all the thought that went into it. Our next goal after that is we'll start pushing this plan out to the legislators. They're going to be negotiating on our behalf for that grant money. And we recognize very clearly that we are competing against other competing interests at the legislature for these grant dollars. We have powerful advocates within Senator Wellman, and we will convince those advocates that are sitting on the fence right now, not knowing what they should do. But I think what we were counseled to do as a team was to come up with something that speaks to not just the why, but the how, the when, the cost, and any other kind of ancillary requirements that we could attach to it. But you will be informed all the way along.
Thank you.
So I just want to keep walking us through a few things and we'll just touch on them on page 8. And I do have a couple extra copies if anyone in the audience would like one. Are you okay? I had already opened that a bit. I'll give you. Okay, page 8. I'd like you to see the areas that we have focused on. So it is construction, because we recognize from the EDC's evaluation of Clallam County and SQUIM that construction, healthcare, automotive repair and maintenance, manufacturing, information technology are the areas that we need to be focused on, because those job openings offer living wage opportunities for our graduates right out of high school.
When you say construction, where, I mean, is that this?
Oh, I'm sorry, I said page 8, but I think I meant page 6. Oh,
Page 8 is comprehensive of what we currently provide.
My apologies.
Okay.
I didn't have my glasses on and I read it as an 8. On they go.
Now, there were 175 occupations that were identified in the Clallam County research data. And we pared it down to about 31 that we're prepared to address right here from SQUIM School District. And of those 31, those 5 or 6 clusters that you see there on page 6, those are the ones that we have really kind of focused on for the reason behind this infrastructure modernization.
Okay, page 7, of course, does describe the building, and I'm going to pass this down for you to look at. We've just received this hot off the press, literally. This is a rendering of what could be, and it does encompass, you'll see the multiple bays. The orientation would be, this wall would be towards SQUIM Avenue. This looking toward Hendrickson, so I'll pass it down so you can look at that.
We are pursuing solar panels through a $1 million grant from the federal government to help power it as well. So we're making it,
That's right.
what's that?
Separate from this, right?
I think we included the overall cost at 17.5, but that was with $1 million look for the solar panels. And so we are trying to make this as comprehensive a project as we can without crushing the budget.
I had a question about just a clarification. You were talking about the living wage. And there was a description here of a prosperity wage. And so I was wondering whether there's any sense of how many of the graduates in this program would actually graduate into a prosperity wage, since housing is such an issue in our county.
Right, well, I think, one does connect itself to the other in the sense that cost of living is going up to include housing, food, all those kinds of issues. What we're using are the January numbers against this study. So by 25, some of these numbers will change. What we try to demonstrate here is that we've done our homework on the current wage rates. Prosperity wage, I think that's more of a subjective term than a living wage is, but you're right. And those numbers may fluctuate as we put this project forward. But I can go back to our CPA who helped us crunch these numbers and take a look at that and address that as a question on Wednesday night for you.
All right, if we move through to page 11, you'll see a timeline page. And I think that's quite self-explanatory of how we project we would move through this process. I'm just going to go at a rather rapid clip here. Page 12 gives you a project budget. Many of these numbers, we have been speaking with folks who are in the industry and can give us great guidance on where the numbers should land. But we continue every week to speak with more and more people directly related to the construction of such a building to try to clarify and get more detailed about that. So we'll continue to refine numbers as we go.
And one of the things that will affect those numbers is our business partnerships that we're creating currently with the community industry leaders. In-kind services provided to us, resourcing, some of their, access to resources may make this actually a lower cost project for us than a higher cost. So by cultivating those relationships, we are banking on their goodwill, and they have a vested interest in this project succeeding.
We get to page 13, that's where we start talking about return on investment. And there are many pages that have information related to return on investment in an appendices, appendices 2 that's attached to this document, but I'm just going to encapsulate it this way. Return on investment for this project comes from the fact that our city, our local region, have so many job openings in these categories that we have selected, that if we can help with those position fill rates, we will have the billing power go back to the businesses so that they are able to generate this return that will lead to not only hopefully profitable wages for the workers, but also profit to businesses and taxation that can come to the city and county. If we didn't have the number of open job positions, we might not have the opportunity right now to make such a return on investment declaration. But you'll see in the work that comes in the appendices that we are ripe for this opportunity right now. And by 2025, we will have simultaneously worked on the programming and the gathering of curriculum, training for teachers who will be in front of these programs, that we will be well suited to have graduates prepared. And what Ned is saying about bringing on middle school opportunities, it's mindset. Once you get the students involved in hands-on learning and they get attracted to that, they will be more attracted to programming, I believe, that will lead them into these pathways and give them those opportunities. So I would say to you, as you're reading through the return on investment information, it's really important to look at those graphs. I'll point you to Appendix 2, return on investment analysis, step 6. It's in the back quite substantially. It's appendix page 6. And you'll see on that graph that it lists a couple of the construction areas that we have targeted. It does discuss in 2021 what economic output was for such businesses and shows the total number of employees. And we recognize that when we have that many openings to be working toward filling, the economic output that could be generated is much more substantial. So as you look over these graphs, if you have any questions, please call us and we will work to either answer your question or have appropriate experts answer them regarding the generation of output per FTE. Okay, another important page in your document is about in the middle, I believe it's page 15. And it is about donations. How can you help? I want to be very clear that we are off and running. The Howler Foundation has made a $40,000 donation to Sequim School District. We have already received a check. We have an account that is dedicated to CTE donations, and we are receiving today. So how can people help? Certainly studying what we're offering and deciding that you can sign on with this effort is great. But giving donations to us, we can accept checks and have them make out to Sequim School District with a memo that is for the CTE Center of Excellence. And we'll be able to accept those. We also recognize that there are ways that some businesses could have in-kind participation with the construction of a CTE center, And we would love to hear from businesses that would be interested in doing that or in making a donation toward the effort. And we already have businesses that have told us they are more than prepared to move forward with in-kind donations or financial donations. So we're excited for that. I also would say that there's been some question about, well, this 15 million is going to CTE. What about other programs in the school system? This programming and this grant is dedicated to CTE. Senator Wellman has made that very clear that that is the direction for this, but it does not take away from any other programs. What it does indeed do is allow us, if this is pulled down, to dedicate this towards CTE and then use future bond monies, for instance, toward other programs that need support too, because we know our district needs support all the way around. So we're very hopeful that people see this as a win-win-win, win for students. It's a win for our community. It's also a win for our school district in this way. Investment begets investment. Once we show we can create a new center for excellence, evolve our programming, other things will come our way as well. So I really look forward to this effort.
And the experience that we gain from this model is experience that can be transformed and translated into other models moving forward as we improve the greater footprint of our district. So this kind of experience for our team is valuable. Because putting together these documents is, as you know, very laborious and takes an awful lot of time, but it also takes asking the right questions. So as we put this to ground, you'll see that the effect of this will affect the greater footprint of our district in other areas.
I just wanted to add that I thought it was pretty interesting also that there was some mention of how we might use this building for the community at large with the emergency management, the sort of crisis center, that's something we really very much need this for, and that would be another use for this building, for this facility.
Right. We see it as potentially hosting events, being a staging area for a community crisis event. We look at it as, you know, again, just a serviceable building. That's the design element. Will lend itself to that because by keeping it modular, meaning that we're moving things in and moving things out and not making it a fixed building for one aspect, it is something that we can use for several aspects. But we also want our community to be proud of it. As you can see by the rendering, that we're not going to make it look like a pole barn sitting in the back 40 out here with a couple goats and sheep tied to it. All right, we're going to make it look like a very modern manufacturing building. When you walk into it, it'll be something our community can be proud of. We are working today and have for the last several months in building partnerships with Olympic College and Peninsula College to create a campus here in Sequim. We have another plan for that building will be to create what's called an open doors program for students who are past the age of 21, but still haven't achieved either a certificate or a high school degree. By having that capacity and using it on weekends and post-school nights, past school nights, we're creating multiple capability for our community. And we're doing it organically. And I think that's something too, that when you're asked questions about this is an organic, sustainable capability that we're putting in place here. The CTE monies with the increased student throughput, the grant monies that we can compete towards with CTE, just in general, just CTE will sustain this over the many years. Other questions?
One question.
Right,
Because we're going to be asking for help, participation from maybe the city and the county. Is there local businesses that are going to get preferenced so that not only is there going to be an eventual return on investment, there'll be immediate, and are using local vendors? That's something that we, when we're going around talking to people, ask the list of, okay, we will prioritize local vendors.
Yes,
Is that the idea?
and yes, it is. As a matter of fact, just a quick math equation here, which our CPA so gallantly provided us a couple of weeks ago. You know, the city is a little reluctant to commit to a dollar figure. We've asked them for $250,000. We have been told the county will match that $250,000. Their letter back to us was, we'd like to see some skin in the game from industry, which industry is starting to pony right up. And we're talking many tens of thousands of dollars of pledges that they're willing to put against this. But if we just do the math on a $15 million bill, the sales tax alone on that building brings back into the city's coffers $170,000. So just by bringing the grant into the community and using the grant money explicitly for the bill, the sales revenue and just taxes alone comes back in the first year of $170,000. So is this an investment? Yes. Is it a gift? No. But here's what I believe. Senator Wellman and her team could have picked any amount of money for us to have to try and match. Why $1 million? Why not $5 million? Why not half the cost? I believe what we need to demonstrate in this process is a unified community. When we have the unity with our industry, and there's more components to them just receiving students that we graduate. We have a responsibility to build relationships with these industries by bringing those subject matter experts right into our classroom and having them talk about their industry to our students in ways that our students can go, you know, I could do that someday. I might want to do that someday. And there's the person right there that can help me do that. That's another component of this that will pay dividends back to industry right away. I've met with countless number of business leaders in this community since February of last year when we started this journey. Every one of them have said, we want to build relationships with those students so that they can see themselves in our industry. When you take a look at these numbers and you say, how are these numbers going to fluctuate over the next several years in terms of job opportunities for students? Well, we are currently in a baby boomer generation that's retiring out and taking their skill sets with them. This has created a vacuum for our community. Industry leaders know this firsthand. I've had industry leaders come to me and say, Ned, if you could just teach them to read an analog clock and a tape measure, I'll hire them. But granted, we want better than that. But we don't have an infrastructure currently that's designed for that. I come from a long line of program development for the federal government while I serve in other areas of this nation. And the very two things you know about program development, what are the requirements you need to meet, and what's the capability you have to get to those requirements. We know what our requirements are, but we can see that our capabilities aren't going to meet that mark. Not now, and not in the future unless we change something. But that's the plan for this. Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
I just want to say hats off. I mean, this is so professional. And it's just very impressive. And I know you know, your committee has had a really short time to put it together, and it's very persuasive. It's very comprehensive, and I just really appreciate your passion and your competence in putting this together. And also just the strong support that the superintendent has given you. I feel like that's kind of given everybody a boost because everybody knows we're all in. And so thank you. I really, when you're asking for this kind of money, you need a strong advocacy piece like this. And anyway, you guys have done an excellent job. So please tell the people on your committee, thank you.
What I really want to underpin this with one last comment. All of this work was done by volunteer efforts. Every bit of it. Aside from the employees here that are assigned to the school district. All of this work from our community was done in volunteers. We brought in subject matter experts that want to see this successful because they see an impact to their livelihoods and community that goes beyond our time here. And so this is a legacy we'd like to make sure that while we're responsible for the leadership of this district, that we can get this done. So thank you, and thanks to the volunteers that did this.
Well, just in closing, I do think that many of the aspects in this report speak for themselves, but that's one thing we certainly want to be sure to say. The committee's been working so hard. I have gotten messages from folks that have said, we all need to catch up. So I know the school board needs to catch up with everything we've been thinking and doing and breathing for weeks. And Megan Like is someone I also want to bring to light here. To have a public information officer who is helping to produce such a high level public facing document like this. We have a lot of strengths at Sequim School District. And if people continue to ask and demand, as they should, that we produce this, this is what you can expect. So I really have to say my hat's off to her as well for these amazing documents.
And you had you had said at the end you were gonna, yes.
I would appreciate if the board would have a discussion and consider some type of formal support for this business plan and the direction that we're moving. We do have the community forum that the city of Sequim has called for January 23rd. And I do believe at that community forum, we will certainly have many supporters who will come to speak to the city of Sequim about the benefits. They will have this document. But I think for us to be able to let them know 2 weeks ahead that the Sequim School Board feels that strongly would bring a cherry on top of the communication efforts.
So I have a couple of comments, but we can either, if somebody is so inclined to make a motion, we can either have the discussion after a motion is made, or if folks feel like they need more questions answered before making a motion, that's an option too, but I'll post that to the board if anyone's prepared to make a motion regarding supporting this.
I will make a motion that the board vote to endorse the efforts of the CTE committee and the administration in pursuing funding, local funding to match what's being requested by the legislature, and that we give our approval to this business plan, or the business plan as it is further refined, to present this to stakeholders who may be in a position to contribute or support us in our efforts.
We have a second to that motion?
I'll second it if you can repeat that motion.
We do not have a, sorry, it went too long.
I'm hoping somebody's got, I heard you type it.
I second what I think I heard was that we are endorsing the CTE business plan efforts and the efforts of the CTE committee.
Yes.
And CTE, the CTE steering
Task force,
committee
council.
specifically? Is that-
And I add that the board endorses the effort of the CTE community committee and administration to pursue local funding to match what's being requested by the legislature and the business plan to be presented to stakeholders who are interested.
She almost got it all.
And she cut out the stuff that was unnecessary.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. Yeah, we have a motion and a second. We'll open it up for discussion. I am gonna guide some of the discussion first, if there's no objection, because I'm particularly interested after the presentation to hear a little feedback from our students on their thoughts. To put you on the spot, so.
I think a lot of students would really be excited by this, because I know that right now our CT facilities are definitely not up to what they could be.
Mhm.
There's like a lot of learning that is being lost there. Like I've been in a couple of the STEM clubs and classes as well, and I can say that when you compare to like other schools, it definitely kind of makes you wonder how we even have these classes.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, sorry.
It convinced me, like everything sounded very, open opportunities for all the students and a better, improvement to everything.
Yeah.
We have.
Interesting, you said that. One of the notes I had down was just about the level of excitement that this can build and how that might directly connect with enrollment, which of course also drives funding. So there's multiple layers of this, but when you think about some of the students that might be either considering SQUIM, or maybe they're currently in SQUIM, but they're homeschooled, or which, but when they see this facility, I mean, that's something to get excited about. They're gonna want to be there, and so I think providing that is also a consideration, and as we consider what enrollment looks like and how that affects the district financially, I think there's a connection to be made. So I will, that building that excitement from the student perspective, I think is important. So, yeah.
And I just want to piggyback on that a little, in that I think when you put money into a program like this, especially when you use the word excellence, it has a way not just of building excitement generally, but also building a sense of pride in the school that can also reach over into other programs. Because once you establish that baseline of excellence, it really does have a way of making its way out into the rest of the school community. So I think that's a good one.
Other discussion?
I've had my concerns about this all along. This business plan went a long way, at least on this phase, to convince me that it's a worthwhile effort. And I look forward to the larger discussion as this moves forward of how we intermesh this effort with the college prep efforts and how they intertwine. I was a biology and chemistry teacher. I have a former student that went on to college and now works for Pacific Northwest Labs out here at the Marine Research Center. So it's a career, they're all career oriented. And I want to make sure that, for example, the kids in my biology class that are also in the medical CTE program, that all intermeshes well. And that we have a top-notch CTE program as well as a top-notch academic career path, a top-notch college prep program, because we need to serve all the kids. But I will admit, CTE and what we used to call vocational ed has kind of gone by the wayside. And we've gone so heavy on college prep that a lot of our kids just aren't benefiting from our programs. So I think this is pretty exciting. I have concerns, and I'll gonna hold myself to my own feet to the fire to make sure we have a robust academic program no matter what we do. And I agree, if we don't get this $15 million, this document, probably save it, because we're gonna need it down the road. And our local taxpayers will be asking them to pay for something like this down the road, because we need it. It's a strong case for it. So hopefully the money comes through.
One thing that I had written down that I wanted to say is just, I know that we kind of think about it as two different paths as well, CTE versus college, but just to say that there are folks that may plan to go to college that do some of these CTE classes is what gets them excited about coming to school. I hate to bring it back to my own, but my daughter, I mean, she is in college right now, but she took CTE courses in SQUIM High School, and that's really what some of the highlights to her here while she was at high school. She she did a lot of the project lead the way and the medical aspects, but all under that CTE. And I think that's not, so it's not just one or the other. Sometimes there's hybrids of both. And I think that's just as important too. The other detail that came to mind as it related to, and this came up as it relates to the match, the 1 million for 15 million, because I wanted to get to kind of compare that to how matching typically works with state funds for construction projects. And, you know, almost just to humorous myself, but it doesn't even, I mean, it's such an advantageous. The amount that 1 million for 15 million is.
I'll take it.
Sometimes don't love the term no brainer, but it's, I mean, it's amazing. Because some of the other funds for other construction projects, if we were to go the path of a bond with the same facility, I mean, it would be so much more that we would have to come up with. So this really makes sense. I also think it's important, and I would encourage the rest of the board if you wanted to weigh in on this detail specifically, but I'll just speak for myself. This by no means, this doesn't mean that the other facilities are not just as important, the other facility concerns that we have. So I just want to go on record saying that I still know that there are concerns with our other facilities, and we are still, I still want to make those a priority. And I truly believe that we can walk and chew gum at the same time, pardon the expression, but it's, this is the deal that we're on the table tonight discussing as an agenda item, and the deal is, let's raise as a community 1 million, return is 15 million. So, but I would, my request is maybe if the rest of the board could potentially comment on the other facility needs, just so the public is aware of how this aligns with those. If anyone feels so.
Well, I would certainly concur with that, and so I said to President Pickens the other day, and the superintendent, that, you know, sometimes you can, the perfect can be the enemy of the good. And we have something good in front of us right now. And it's not something that, you know, a bunch of our community members have been advocating for this for a long time. And as a result of the efforts of very many people, we have this opportunity in front of us. And so to say, well, should we actually pursue this opportunity because what about the people who want the stadium fixed, or what about the people who think the auditorium needs to be redone, or whatever the other many and legitimate requests are. Us not getting this does not fix any of those other problems. It just means we don't get this. So I totally concur with President Pickens. Our eyes are on all of those other needs. We are always constrained by funding issues and competing requests for resources, but we will continue to be focused on those things. I think that the community can look at just how we responded recently to the concerns about safety, and that we are good stewards of the resources that we have. And in response to community concerns, we did some reconsidering, and we immediately prioritized getting the cameras installed, and we got them installed, and they're working and they're benefiting our district. And I think that we will continue in that, you know, in that vein. But right now, this is what we have. We will continue to focus on all the other things, but this is really a very unique opportunity, and I hope that people who have concerns about other facilities realize, I think kind of what Director Halverson was saying, that sometimes there's sort of a snowball effect. A good thing happens, and then other good things happen. And people look at SCWM and go, look at this, they're really investing. We should help them out with this, you know, or we should, now let's focus on that. So my view is it's never bad to start a journey of excellence, and we'll just stay on it.
I was gonna say that, we know that we have facility problems all the way from bathrooms not working to certain lights and all kinds of stuff. But I look at it this way, it's, as Director Jeffrey started to say, if we have $100 million that we need to spend on these facilities, just use a round number to get them up, now we have to come with 85 if we try to pass the bar. And I'm thinking the interest on that money, that 15 million is gonna be more than $1 million. So looking what rates are going, everything, you said it, it's kind of a no-brainer. We understand we still need to get bonds passed. That's part of the reason I wanted to be part of this board, is to get that to happen. But I'm excited about the possibility of kind of ask for $15 million less when we go to ask the community for them. So I think that's a great thing.
Ditto.
That's it. All right. Any additional discussion? Okay, and call for the vote. All in favor? Everyone familiar, still remember the motion? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I believe that was everybody. All right, so that motion
Tracy did
passes.
an amazing job.
She did capturing the
Good job,
essence.
Tracy.
Yes, thank you.
The other piece that I will say is, I wanted to make sure that we were officially, that the board was supportive of this moving forward. So now that we are, one thing that I believe we should consider, and I think there's a simultaneous meeting that's happening, but I think we have potentially a plan to address that, is the idea of or even participating, but also encouraging the public to participate in the upcoming meeting with the city council, where they reached out for public comment, which could include us as board members, but also community members that, will come to a city council meeting and support, because I believe that the city council making a gesture, or I should call it that, an investment. I think that's an important investment, that the county is waiting to follow suit. So I think we should encourage both the connections that we have as board members, but anyone listening as the public, to consider that. And that meeting is the 23rd. So yeah, I think we're gonna make some arrangements to see if we can show up and support them. So, and hopefully encourage others to do so as well.
Yeah, I think that night we're meeting at 5, so we can meet with the city at 6.
I think that would be an
That's
excellent
correct.
idea and would allow us to do our business first and then head
I
over.
think I saw something like that come
Yeah.
through. So.
Try to accommodate that.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay. 9.03, we have a first reading of policy 5.5001, which is the hiring of retired school employees. Is there anything you wanted to introduce on this one? Or Pat?
Nothing to introduce. Nope.
Okay. So this is the first reading. Was this one reviewed by the policy committee?
It was reviewed by HR.
Oh,
Right, that's what I
HR
thought,
is-
yeah.
okay,
So they have gone through this to make sure that the updates are accurate and that we are practicing what we need to be out of the HR office and payroll.
It looks like a lot of the updates here are mandated by changes in the law. So
and so as we've done traditionally with first readings, we could still make a motion in a second to advance into a second reading. And if somebody was so inclined to make that motion, now would certainly be an appropriate time.
I'll do that.
I'd like to propose that we move policy 5001, hiring of retired school employees, to a second reading.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor of moving policy 5001 to a second reading, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is approved. Next, we have a first reading of policy 5011, sexual harassment of district staff prohibited.
I move that we move for a second reading of policy 5011.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of moving 5011 on to a second reading, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That is approved. Agenda item 9.05, which is first reading of policy 5610, substitute employment.
This is another HR reviewed policy to be in alignment with practice and protocols. we need to be using.
I move we move policy 5610, substitute employment, forward to a second reading.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
And it looks like, once again, this is legal law changes. And I really appreciate the fact that HR, they look over these before they come to us, so that we're have the expert eyes looking at these things.
Agreed.
I also want to share that I appreciate the comments and the markup on here. Explanation given, because at first I was, when I saw the 20 full consecutive working days, when I saw it crossed off, I was like, wait a minute, I think there's an RCW that says that way, but it is an important distinction that once you reach that threshold, you're part of this bargaining unit, but that does not necessarily dictate what the bargaining agreement itself might dictate what that means, but that doesn't necessarily dictate that the pay is according to that, because that is dependent upon the CBA itself. So it's an important distinction. So I appreciated that being called out. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of moving this to a second reading, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Passes. We're on to some second readings now. So agenda item 9.06, second reading and approval of policy 1815, ethical conduct for school directors. We have
I move we approve policy 1815, ethical conduct for school directors.
we have a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving policy 1815, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Agenda item 9.07, second reading and approval of policy 1822, which is the training and professional development for board members. We have a motion.
I move that we approve policy 1822, training and professional development for board members.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Agenda item 9.08, second reading and approval of policy 1825 addressing school director violations.
I move that we adopt policy 1825.
A second. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Is that everybody? Okay. The reason I typically don't ask for nays is when I can verbally hear everybody, I feel like it seems to be a waste of time to ask for nays and abstentions, because I heard all 5 ayes, so wanted to make sure. All right, that motion passes. Yeah. Second reading and approval of policy 3432. Emergencies.
I move we approve policy 3432 emergencies.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes. Second reading and approval of policy 4210. Dangerous weapons on school premises.
I move that we approve policy 4210, regulation of dangerous weapons on school premises.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I do have a discussion on this one.
Okay.
I have a question on why we elected to add the not required part. That second, which is note, the board is not required to adopt the next paragraph. I just was wondering the discussion on why we decided to adopt something that wasn't required. Was there discussion on it?
Yes, there was. We just wanted it to be clear, especially for item number 2 on there, for folks who might be renting or utilizing our facility, that there was not an allowance for any dangerous weapons. And we felt that in this day and age, clarity was better than an absence of language, which doesn't help to educate people who might read it or guide the administrators who might be making the decisions on follow-up to an incident.
But do we need to have that sentence in there with a note?
No, the note should be removed when it's finalized.
Yeah, the note itself won't be in the approved policy. It's just there. Sometimes when we receive these policies, there are certain aspects that we know we have to change because it's required by law, and then some that are quote unquote recommended or not recommended. Yeah, or I should say recommended or optional. In this case, there's kind of a combination of both. So I think that's why calling that out is important.
Just a quick question. Now, we adopt this policy. If we adopt this policy, then the procedure that goes with this policy will be edited, updated, changed. That's not something we're involved in, so I just want, this is just a process question more than anything.
4210, is there a procedure? I'll have to look into that, Larry, to see if there is.
I know sometimes WASDA will put a model procedure also to help us with some of these more legalistic kinds of policies.
Sure. I would just say in this case, I'm not familiar, 42, there is not a procedure that is in alignment with this.
I think if
There
you
may or not, does there need to be or not?
well, if you think about this, talks about things that are prohibited, and then it references other policies in the event that there is like, for example, it says an expulsion or suspension of all other disciplined students who violate this policy will be subject to district policy 3241 under student discipline. So we reference another policy that would be referred to in the case that there's a violation. And then district policy 5281 is also referenced as it relates to staff violating the policy. So I think that may be why it's absent of that doesn't necessarily need a procedure for references to other policies for discipline.
Correct. I think there are many policies that don't have a procedure, and in this case, it really, your response is either disciplinary or it's going to be something to do with law enforcement if it's serious enough with dangerous weapon.
There is, in here, like a student circular, they're telling you what to do in this policy right here. I do think this might be something that needs further discussion. So I would motion to table this indefinitely so that we can go back and kind of look at it. And then maybe bring it back up again, because I think there are some things in here that, as a board member, I would like to review a little bit further before we just approve it, or maybe we can look at a later date, but first I'd like the motions to table it.
Okay, so there's a motion to clarify, postpone indefinitely.
Sorry, postpone.
Yeah,
Not table, that's right.
So one of those ones that gets used quite a bit, but
Yeah. To postpone.
I think that's what you, yeah,
Yeah.
to postpone this one for further review. Do we have a second?
I'll second it so we can discuss it.
Yeah, that's fine. I was about to do the same. So I think it's
So-
fair to discuss because it's
Um,
questionable whether a second is technically required. So
I suppose a process question again, you know, if I had questions about certain parts on this, this would be referred back to the superintendent, to the policy committee to look at it, or are you thinking all of us need to sit down and discuss?
My original table was to maybe speak with Regan on it and to kind of get some input back and forth with her to let her know my opinions, and maybe then we could talk to the policy committee, reintroduce it, and then we can then do some votes and discussions on it. Because we're already at a second reading. Has this first one, and for the holidays, I did not get the time that I wanted to delve into this.
is there just a question for myself for our vote, is there certain aspects of this that are, because it's obviously pretty multiple pages, is there part of this in particular that you have questions on?
No, it may be fine the way it is. I just feel like I've had enough time for me as a board member to give my stamp of approval on it, because there's some things in here that might, like I said, we've added some things in there, the policies, we weren't necessarily clear on what is the policy that's going in, but they do have some in there. So I just feel like it just warrants some further discussion before we approve it as is. Even though I have a lot of faith in our current superintendent, if things change, I want to know what power are we giving to whoever's sitting in that position.
I don't, it's me speaking for myself. I'm just adding some of my own discussion. I in particular don't have a problem with the policy as written now. However, I also would not object to taking a little bit more time if your intention is to meet with Regan to have some discussion. I think, and potentially could still just come back for another second reading and
It may come back the exact way it is.
Yeah.
I just feel that I personally have not reviewed it enough, because it kind of came up during the holiday season. And there's some things in here like, suspension of student, expelled. These are some serious stuff and some serious consequences. I just want to make sure that our policies reflect our community and what we envision for the school.
right. I don't have, so one clarification that I just want to make sure that you're aware of, it would still come back to us in the exact form as a second reading, regardless of your discussion with Regan, because if there were aspects that you wanted to have changed, we would discuss that as a board, all five of us, potentially vote or not vote, or it could be referred back to policy committee to then recommend it to us with that feedback. So when you had mentioned talking again, I don't object to that at all, but it would still, unless we discussed it as a board, it would still come back in the form that it is now, potentially with your approval, not approval, or recommended changes at the next meeting. So
I can even change, to, we can postpone to next meeting. So that way it's not indefinitely and not going to just bring it up the next meeting. That gives us some time to talk about it. I don't mind changing the motion.
either way, I don't want to box our superintendent into a date, but I think
Because I just know
It'll
there's
probably
stuff coming up I saw between the next few weeks. That was the only reason I said indefinitely. So then we can just put it on the agenda when we're ready to put it on the agenda. There's no time people watch.
Tracy, what's the next policy?
I love that. As we just met.
Right. I'm just thinking maybe we could just push it out to a date right after the next policy committee meeting so that you can have a chance to have your questions answered. If there's something you guys want to bring to the policy committee for further discussion, we could do that and then consider it at the next meeting.
Okay. I mean, I do think we could get a quick turnaround on it also.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah. However you guys want to do it, but I think it would be good to. I mean, it sounds like next week, our next meeting is gonna be kind of short. Because we're gonna be, so maybe push it to the following.
Or maybe, just sitting down with the superintendent. And talking those issues, you realize, oh,
I'm prepared.
I'm prepared, and so we'd never go back to the policy committee, we just did this
Right.
back again.
I think, so I'd say keeping it as you originally phrased it, and definitely does keep it open,
Because we just put it back on.
keeps it for flexibility, so I think, my opinion is probably fine as is. So, any other discussion on the motion to postpone? The approval of the second reading. Okay, all in favor of motion to postpone second reading of policy numbers 4210, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Okay, that motion passes. So we'll go ahead and postpone 4210.
And we've learned our Robert's Rules of Order a little bit better, where a motion to postpone takes
That is,
precedence
yes,
over the
Yeah.
original motion.
it does.
We used to argue about that.
Used to.
Well, I did.
No, I did.
Okay, we have agenda item 911, which is review, discuss procedure 1420P, proposed agenda and consent agenda. This was on there from previous, from the previous meeting. And we had talked about whether or not it should be in this form versus a first reading. And I think there was just a little confusion that we wanted to clear up, just so we're all on the same page as to whether or not this one needed to be gone through by the policy committee or not. And I'm sort of the mindset that this one is pretty clear cut, and I don't know that it needs to be reviewed by the policy committee, because it's just changing the way that we conduct our business in the how we approve items. I just think it needs to be which I could certainly ask Superintendent Nichols to make the necessary adjustments to the language to basically capture what we're asking to have done. I don't know that it needs committee buy-in, as long as the general consensus is that we're all in favor of going that direction. So I think and I'm seeing some kind of head nods that, yeah, this is just a matter of efficiency. So I think as long as we make those wording changes to make sure we're still following our own policy, that we can just make those changes, and then it'll be ready for first reading. Is there any concerns or with proceeding that way?
We're mostly just talking about being able to add additional items to the consent agenda, right?
That's kind of one way of putting it. Oh, well, no, I don't know that I would put it that way. It's because there would still be a separate consent agenda, but essentially the approval of consent agenda, the consent agenda minutes, all routine matters can just be done with,
In one.
yeah, can be just, any objection to the approval of
If there are no
these
objections,
items.
Right.
And if there's, and if somebody objects, somebody says, yes, actually, I need to vote on that particular item, or I may need to abstain, that then they say, I have an objection, okay, any objection to the approval of minutes in the agenda? No,
Right,
hearing none, those are approved.
okay,
and hopefully we would have let you know ahead of time, this item, I'd like to pull this out of the consent agenda.
You can either let them know ahead of time, Director Jeffries, or at the moment, you could say, I motion to have this pulled out of the consent agenda.
Yeah,
It's just having recourse.
yeah, letting you know ahead of time isn't necessary. In fact, we like to make sure and have folks want to be able to see the sausage made, and no problem there, so. But particularly if there's something in the consent agenda that, where it might typically come up is you want to approve everything in the consent agenda, except might be a particular item within the consent agenda that you have a conflict of interest with, and so you want to be able to abstain. Consent agenda is multiple items, so if it's all approved in one, you have to abstain from everything. So it's better to pull up one individual item to then, I mean, and that's one example why you might want to pull it. You could just pull it because you think you want to have a more robust discussion around that item. So there's several reasons why, but other than that, if it's just routine matters, we want to just get those out of the way.
Sounds good.
Okay. Then that I'll ask Regan if you don't mind making those adjustments, and then we'll just do a first reading, and if everyone's on board, then we'll proceed to second reading. By June or so. Strike that from me. Sarcasm does not have to be captured in the minutes. Okay. So that was just a more of a discussion, so I believe that is the end, that's the end of our business. And so any other items for the good of the order? Okay. We'll have Thursday, we have something coming up Thursday.
Thursday, we have strategic plan. Next Thursday, we have the safety forum. The following Monday, we'll have our board meeting and the community forum about CTE, so we'll be busy.
Yeah.
And just to put out there, it is School Director Recognition Month. So thank you for all you're doing and.
I guess I was the first one. Megan is absolutely does magic. She actually made me look good. So kudos to her, my goodness.
When is Megan's recognition?
This is actually her hiring anniversary month.
Oh,
I'm good.
All right. Wow. Please share our thank you to her. That's.
If we all show up to strategic planning, or three of us, is that a quorum concern?
We planned that we would put out that, we would have that situation. And, we will have multiple tables, so you don't have to sit at
Don't
the
sit
same
together.
one.
All right. Well, I want to thank our students for, and especially advocating for, from a strategic plan perspective. I know that some, a lot of times could be some riveting discussion for students to be involved in. So I think 20 is an awesome goal. I would be excited if anywhere near that amount are able to attend, but thank you for making me ask. I think it's important. So thank you very much. Okay, with that, we'll